The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patrick Caldwell, Senior Planner with the City of Westminster, and I just wanted to welcome you all to the virtual neighborhood meeting for the Uplands Parcel B-1. And today is Thursday, July 8th, and the meeting will begin now. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to quickly go over some virtual engagement etiquette. Just please keep your comments courteous and cordial. Questions and comments will be read aloud to the audience along with the name of the person making the inquiry. And we'll do that following the applicant presentation. And then please keep your questions and comments relevant to the application being considered. For additional information regarding city's social media policy, please visit our website. And please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the city's YouTube channel. The link is here. The items that I just read through will be listed on that YouTube channel. So you don't need to be writing furiously or snapping pictures of the screen to capture this. So again, welcome everyone. Next slide, please. Here's our agenda for tonight. Welcome and introductions, and introductions of the applicant team will also follow. I have a brief presentation. The applicant will follow that with their presentation. Then we have a question and answer period, and then we'll briefly discuss the next steps and sort of contact follow-up information. Next slide, please. The question and answer period is really an opportunity for the audience to ask relevant questions. It comes after the applicant's presentation. There's a chat box on the right side of the screen, and please type your questions into that chat box. When asking a question or leaving a comment, please remember to stay on topic. Be mindful that your questions and comments will be read aloud to the entire audience along with your name, and that they will be posted on the status development webpage after the meeting. And if time allows, after the chat questions and comments are addressed, we will open the meeting up for live speakers. If you'd like to state your question or comment orally, please type, "I would like to speak," and a staff member will let you know if and when you can speak. Next slide, please. Again, I'm Patrick Caldwell, Senior Planner with the City of Westminster. Next slide, please. Just briefly, Uplands Parcel B-1 is outlined in red on your screen, and that the site is generally northwest of Bradburn Drive. It is east of Lowell Boulevard and generally south of 84th Avenue. There's just a little frontage on both 84th and on Lowell Boulevard. The proposal is for 82 dwellings in 41 buildings on 16.5 acres. There's an average lot size of about 3,000 square feet. There's private open space proposed that's about 7.27 acres. And there's a public land dedication parcel dedication of about 2.37 acres. And if you add up the private and the public, you get about 10 acres of green space on the proposed development. Next slide, please. The development review process goes through a lot of steps, and the steps are summarized here. On the far left, there's a rezoning and a preliminary development plan application and annexation requested for the larger Uplands parcel. The middle list is for this particular project. There's an official development plan application the applicant has submitted, and then there's a first review. We've completed that. Following the first review, a neighborhood meeting is required, and additional staff reviews will be held as required. And this may be an administratively approved official development plan if all the criteria is met. Following the approval of the official development plan, that you can see on the list on the far right, that there are some technical items that the city reviews. There's the civil construction drawings and building permits, and those go through a series of reviews until they've satisfied clearly all the criteria and regulations that are required for building permit and construction activities. Next slide, please. And when we review the official development plan, we do review the public land dedication, traffic considerations, not just on the edge streets, but on the larger area surrounding the property. We review drainage and the kind of drainage and the detention requirements for the property. We look at private open space, we look at building design, and we look at consistency with the Uplands, the proposed preliminary development plan. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to turn it over to the applicant. There's a number of folks with their group. Jasper View with the Packner Company. We're going to have presenters, potentially of Marcus Packner. He's also with the Packner Company. Bonnie Ziolik with Norris Design. Eric Pearson, who's with Cage Civil Engineering, and Morris Barbera with KB Homes. And you might also hear from Chad Ellington with Boread Capital, Jody Newton, who's with Masterworks, and Brad Haig, who's with Norris Design. Next slide, please. And again, I'm going to go over the question and answer period. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat box on the right side of the screen. Type your question in there. Please be mindful that those questions and comments will be read aloud to the entire audience, and they'll be posted after the meeting on the status development webpage. And if time allows, after the chat questions and comments are addressed, we'll open the meeting up for live speakers. Again, if you'd like to state your question or comments orally, please type "I would like to speak" in the chat box, and a staff member will let you know if and when you can speak. Thanks. And next slide, and the applicant will start their presentation. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you, Patrick. I want to thank you and the City of Westminster for hosting this meeting. I want to welcome all of our attendees. We very much appreciate working with all of you and the feedback that we hope to learn and share with you tonight. As was shared by Patrick, we are here specifically to talk about PA B-1, the northern part, just north of Bradburn, as we talked about. We have met with this neighborhood on a number of occasions, but we wanted to be very specific tonight and show you plans about the ODP, Official Development Plan, and really get your feedback. So I would encourage you all during the question and answer period to please ask us specific questions. We wanted to have a large group here so we can answer any questions that you may have. Next slide, please. I will be very brief, just in introductions here, just an agenda for what we're going to cover as a team during our applicant presentation. I'll go through the introductions shortly. We'll talk just briefly about the Westminster process because Patrick just went through it in some detail. We'll talk about the comprehensive plan and the PDP, what got us to this step. Then we'll walk through this conceptual neighborhood plan, the infrastructure improvements that correspond to this neighborhood plan. We'll also do a builder introduction. You'll hear from the builder team member that will also talk about the conceptual proposed architecture on this site. Finally, we'll end by talking about some of the neighborhood amenities, the outward and inward facing amenities, and then we'll transition to the Q&A. Next slide, please. I do just want to say, Patrick mentioned us. I'm Marcus Pochner with the Pochner Company. I'm honored to work with all of you in the neighborhood and really try to make this project better based upon your feedbacks. Bonnie Nischelik with Norris Design will lead the majority of this presentation. And then Eric is our engineer tonight, and you'll hear from Morris from KB Home. Next slide, please. Just two things kind of setting the stage here. We all, know this neighborhood very, very well. Many of you, as you sit in your living rooms today for this meeting, this is Parcel B, again, the northern stretch on the north side there of Bradburn, and kind of looking at this site, it's highlighted there in orange. This next image on the slide actually shows the notification area. If you could transition to that next slide, please. This just shows kind of a blow up a little bit of the area and shows the notification area, why people received it, the notice requirements that we followed with the city. So I've already seen a question about, can we get a list of folks? I know the city will reply to that, but this is generally the area. It's framed upon the exact parcel, and then we mailed out and provided the notice to this. Next slide, please. We're going to start here, and you can probably transition, to the next slide to go through this Westminster process. I'm going to be joined, or am joined now, by Bonnie Nischelik. Bonnie's going to, I'm just going to say it for, she's going to move pretty quickly through these next 4 or 5 slides because I think Patrick handled a lot of this kind of the process that we've been working through over the last number of years with the city of Westminster. But for now, you'll hear from Bonnie Nischelik, and then I'll probably come back with a few comments throughout the presentation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marcus, and thanks, everyone. So glad to be in front of you all this evening. As Marcus said, we'll walk through this super quickly. These items in blue are kind of the key items. We did a comprehensive plan amendment for this parcel back in January and February of 2020. So that was approved, and we are currently working through the annexation and preliminary development plan for this parcel among some of the other parcels. If you look at the far right of the screen, that's where we are today. So we made one site-specific official development plan. Back in April, we submitted that for this north parcel in B and are continuing to work with city staff. So we've received 1 round of comments and are working through those, and we'll plan to resubmit following this meeting tonight. Next slide. Next slide. So talking a little bit about the comprehensive plan, you can go to the next slide again. So these 2 parcels in B, again, we're focused on the north parcel, but both parcels have a comp plan land use designation of R5, which allows up to 5 dwelling units per acre and includes residential uses, including detached homes, attached homes, duplexes, patio homes, townhomes, and condos. Next slide. As I'm sure many of you have seen, we are also working through a preliminary development plan. Again, just focusing on Parcel B, there's a few things that we've been working with the neighborhood group, city staff to identify. One is a view corridor. So this 3.28 acre parcel at the southwest corner of Lowell and Bradburn will be preserved as a view corridor. Next slide. Adding to that, we have 2 parcels identified for public land dedication, so 2.3 acres on the north and 3.76 acres on the south. So those 2 parcels will be dedicated to the city of Westminster. They will own and maintain those parcels, and we'll go through a public design process to figure out the amenities for each of those pieces. Next slide. So then what is left with these development parcels is what we are proposing to build residential homes on. So again, focusing on the north piece tonight, that north piece allows up to 82 units at a maximum density of 5 DUs per acre. Within the PDP, we also limited the density of the southern parcel. So that one has a comp plan land use designation that allows up to 5 DUs per acre, but is limited through the PDP to just 26 homes. So the north parcel that we're focused on tonight allows for single family attached residences, duplexes, and townhomes. Next slide. One more, please. And then here you can see the overall conceptual land use plan for the north parcel. Part of looking at the overall neighborhood layout was looking at what our context is. So just northeast of this property, we have the multifamily low density uses. So that's those apartment uses that exist today, while single family homes exist on the west and the south. So that is part of the reason why we have the 5 DUs per acre to the north and the 2 DUs per acre to the south, wanting to respond to that context. Next slide. And here you can see those public land dedication and view corridors from the PDP overlaid onto the site plan. So those site acreages for both of those uses are consistent with what's in the PDP. And then with the development of this parcel, we'll also have private parks or open space. Private in this use really just means that it won't be owned and maintained by the city. They'll still be available for use by the public. So that overall north parcel still has open space surrounding those homes. Next slide. And then here you can see the minimum perimeter setbacks around the neighborhood. So on the north, we have a minimum building setback per code of 25 feet. On the northeast, we have a minimum 35-foot building setback. Along Bradburn, we have a minimum 30-foot building setback. And then on the west side, we have a minimum 45-foot building setback. There are 2 small instances of encroachment where that setback is, we're requesting just a minor exception to those setback. So along Bradburn at our north access point, there's one home that gets a couple feet into that setback. And then on the north side, we have the same thing. Just trying to work through some of the grades and some of the details. So just a couple little pinch points on those setbacks. Next slide. So here's that overall summary for the neighborhood. We're proposing a total of 82 duplex homes. So that's 41 buildings. Each building has 2 units within it. The site is approximately 16.5 acres, creating an overall density of 4.97 DUs per acre. The ODP allows for a maximum height of 40 feet, but I believe we're a little bit lower than that with our ultimate building designs. I believe they're closer to 35 feet. Each individual home has a 2-car attached garage. We have 32 surface parking spaces. Those are located on the north portion of the property and then along the south adjacent to Bradburn Drive. Approximately 46 of the homes also have full driveways for additional guest parking. And then on-street parking is also available on the north-south local road. Next slide. Getting into a little bit more detail on each of the individual lots, we have 2 different lot types. The one kind of in the middle of the page on the top is for homes that are 30 and 35 feet wide, the lots are 30 and 35 feet wide. The image on the right side shows lots that are 32 and 37 foot wide, but the setbacks are generally consistent. On the front, we have a 5-foot minimum setback to a porch and a 10-foot minimum setback to a living area. On the corners, we have a minimum 12-foot side setback. And then on the interior side, we have a minimum 7.5-foot side setback. And then there's a minimum of a 3-foot rear setback along the alley. So some of those setbacks on the rear might be quite a bit bigger than that, where we have driveway parking, but that 3-foot is a minimum. Next slide. And then here we're looking at a couple of cross sections through the property. So the one on the top of the screen is cutting through Bradburn on the eastern end of the residential homes adjacent to the public land dedication. And then the image to the bottom is just west of that. So what you can see is Bradburn Drive on the right side of both of those cross sections. And then the topography cuts down. So the homes are tucked a little bit below Bradburn, again, trying to be respectful of how these homes sit relative to Bradburn Drive. Next slide. And then two more cross sections. So the one on the top of the slide is showing the west buffer. So you can see there a trail to the west of those homes, and that dips down to a drainage swale before you get to the existing residential homes that would be located to the left side of this section. And then on the bottom, we have a cross section across 84th and the detention pond on the north end of the community. Again, you can see kind of the landscape buffer and detention area that's created between 84th and those residential homes. One key thing to point out is our vehicular access is only provided along Bradburn Drive, so there is no connection to 84th on the north. Next slide. And then we did a couple of views looking from the view corridor. So on the bottom right of the screen, you can see a key map. There's a little orange dot. So that's a camera location for both of these images. So someone standing at the far south end of that view corridor looking out across the development, across that view corridor. So that top image is what the view looks like today. And then the image on the left side is what that view looks like with these paired homes. So all of those proposed duplexes are lower in elevation than the southern point of that view corridor.